What's the first book you've read that got you into reading books? The Lightning Thief. Harry Potter. I used to hate reading as a kid. Decided to flick through Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone one day when I was 7. A year after I'd been given it as a Christmas present. And, well, I've loved reading ever since. Percy Jackson. Quarantined at home in the early 70s with the chickenpox, Mom brings home The Hobbit. The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. Less than 3. Great taste. Same here. Chronicles of Narnia. My name is Stilton, Geronimo Stilton. I'm ashamed to say that I forgot about that series, but that is an amazing answer. A series of unfortunate events. How to Eat Fried Worms. Tales of the 4th Grade. Nothing. And Super Fudge. I can't remember what order I read them, but they were all good reads when I was in elementary school. Red Wall series by Brian Jacques. Lift Sword Aloft, asterisk REEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeee remember the first one, but Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy kind of sealed the deal. Did you ever read the final part of the series by Owen Colfer? He's the writer of the Artemis Fowl series and captured the humor of the series very well to finish it off. The Secret Diary of Adrian Mole, aged 13 3/4. There were books before this that I read that made me love reading, but this is memorable. In my elementary school, they had a collection of Christopher Pike books and I ended up reading several. I got really into The Last Vampire Chronicles. Soon after, the school found out that Christopher Pike wasn't just a R.L. Stein ripoff but a little more adult than they thought. There was nudity, a mild sex scene, violent bloody vampire killings. His other books also had adult themes and scenes, so they banned the author and I was super sad about it. I begged the principal and got my parents to come ask if I could continue finishing the Last Vampire series. They agreed to let me have access to the whole restricted library if I didn't share them with other students. I single-handedly created a forbidden library and I felt awesome. Sounds really cool! Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. The Forbidden Book. See, Spot Run is the first I remember. Mark Twain's Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn got me into reading. True classics. I started reading a lot of books when I was 7. The earliest memory of a book was a little storybook of Martin Luther. I grew up in a Christian environment. After that my sleep schedule has shifted to 12 o'clock and hasn't changed since. I am now able to read a book of 350 pages under 3 or 4 hours. My favorite book series is The Hunter's Apprentice and Brotherhood from John Flanagan. Donald Duck, The Hobbit, The Magic Tree House. I came here to say this. I used to hate reading and was put in the low reading group where we read really bland and simple stories. But I sat near the table where the reading groups met, and I overheard the advanced group talking about Magic Tree House books and it sounded interesting. I picked up number 9, Sunset of the Saber-Tooth, and was immediately hooked. Inhaled the rest of them. Rocketed to the top reading group, and won several reading awards through my school career. Of the #pages read variety. Oh, and to this day I love history and historical fiction. Maybe kids who are not good readers should be exposed to some actually interesting books and see if that helps. An R.L. Stein Fear Street book started my love of reading. Then an English teacher in 7th grade told me I couldn't read them anymore even though I was clearing one each day. Many years after high school I read The Hunger Games and it started me reading all over again. I cleared about 100 books that year and they were 600 to 800 pages each. It felt good getting back into that again. I hate it when teachers do that shit. Sad face. Makes me so mad. I read The Witches in 4th grade, 1990, and ate up every Roald Dahl book I could find. The Doll People. It's about this old set of small porcelain dolls that have been passed down for a few generations and they're alive. The younger human sister gets a new plastic dollhouse set and the young girl dolls from both sets become friends and go on adventures. Their main adventure is trying to find the porcelain doll's long-lost aunt. Also, when the dolls are first created, they have to take an oath if they want to be alive. It's an oath to protect the secret of doll sentience. If you don't agree, you don't get life. If a human thinks they see you move, you're frozen for like 3 days. Still, conscience just can't move. If a human is 100% sure they saw you move, your sentience is gone forever. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Reading it now, what a great enlightening book. It's really good. Also, there's a second one. Used to hate reading as a little kid. Age 8. Then my big sis said she'd disown me if I didn't try read Harry Potter. Famous 5 and Secret 7. I had a lot of the Famous 5 on tape, used to listen to them when trying to fall asleep. Diary of the Wimpy Kid. When I was 5, I read Go Dog Go at the dentist's office. Haven't looked back since. The Hobbit. Calvin and Hobbes. Calvin's vocabulary and cultural references are quite advanced. I would always be asking my parents questions like, what's a Philistine? What's an anatomically correct snowman? What's censorship and oppression? Quote, I remember asking my mom for a Hobbes toy and then researching into the artist's life. The guy totally disappeared and no one can legally make Calvin and Hobbes merchandise or dolls. The Hobbit. It was a gift from my great-granddad when I was a child. Back when I thought he hated me and I didn't like books. It's still one of my most treasured books to this day. I've lost track of how long it's been, and it was the only gift he ever gave me. I miss Hi Monsieur. Brown Bear, I think it was called. The Long Patrol by Brian Jacques. I'd read bits and pieces before then, but that was my real gateway into fantasy. Shortly afterwards, I was enamored with the Redwall books. I think I started getting into fantasy with Redwall, but it didn't really kick off until I read Wings of Fire a while back. Never really got over that craze, honestly. Goosebumps. I'm dyslexic and the special needs teacher at my school gave it to me because the font was bigger than most books they had at the school. Large print really does make a difference. Hardy Boys. Sideways Stories from Wayside School, also Frindle, around the same time. The 39 Clues series. Hatchet by Gary Paulson. I was dyslexia up until I was 14 years old and I couldn't retain anything from reading. I had a teacher that had a mandatory silent reading time every day, and one day something switched, and my brain could process the book with strong visuals. I haven't stopped, and now read about 6 to 8 books, magazines a month. The Secret Garden. Frances Hodgson Burnett. As a young reader, the story was engaging because it's full of mystery, adventure, and an array of valuable life lessons. One of my favorites. It was a meteorology text. Just fascinated the shit out of me. All Enid Blyton books. Starting with the likes of The Faraway Tree, then Famous 5, Secret 7, Mallory Towers. But the book that stands alone is S.E. Hinton, The Outsiders. Just wow, what a book for a young adult. That's easy. My Side of the Mountain. It was an amazing book and it made me want to go on a real-life adventure. Now my second oldest son loves the book and has been bitten by the adventure bug. Hopefully it gets him further than it did me. I'd love for him to live the adventures that I couldn't. Ah, a man, woman, otherwise inclined person of culture, I see. The Geronimo Stilton series and the Magic Tree House series. Pokémon and Goosebumps. Riley's Luck by Louis L'Amour. The Construction Handbook. LMAO. Nancy Drew and the Old Clock. Animorphs. Stinky Cheese Man and Other Stupid Fairy Tales. And the Magic Tree House books. I believe it was Other Fairly Stupid Tales, if I remember 20 years ago correctly. The Ugly Duckling really cracked me up. Whoops, you were right. Smile. Wizard's First Rule. I read my dad's copy as a kid and it's still my favorite series. I love the Sword of Truth series. Though as the series goes on you can tell Terry Goodkind really really hates communism, ha ha ha. The only book in the series one didn't like was Soul of Fire. Mostly because it moved away from the established main characters for the majority of the story. Pillars of Creation did the same thing, but was a better story in my mind. I did get tired of reading the devotion though. Every book has it and I end up skipping it. I wonder if Good King intended for his readers to memorize it? I'm with you, Soul of Fire and Pillars of Creation weren't my favorites either. I think the first two are up there as his best. There was also the one where he carves a statue. Faith of the Fallen, I think. I really liked that book. I also didn't really care for the third book, the one named after the fanatical dude's Crimson something. Fuck, it's been so long since I've read these books, haha. The Blood of the Fold. I've read all of them at least 15 to 20 times. Except for Soul of Fire, which I generally skim pensive face, only really reading the bits with the main cast. I thought Good King got a bit preach with his philosophy around about Temple of the Winds. I like the series following Nikki so far, but I've yet to buy the others beyond their second adventure. Catcher in the Rye, hardcore for a first book. 1984, also my favorite book. Same. That was the first book that didn't have the happy ending that I was anticipating and it just blew me away. I was wondering the whole time how it was going to turn out well, and was shocked when it didn't. Guess I finally got what I asked for after years of complaining that every story had a happy ending, and it was getting old. Unrelated note, Fahrenheit 451 was a really good book, although I never got around to finishing it. Sadly. Might pick it back up again now. The Hunger Games. Such a good series that still holds up years later. And honestly, the movies were pretty good as far as film adaptations of YA books go. Mortal Engines. The Hatchet. It's called Latte Igel. It's a German book and I loved it. Around the World in 80 Days. It was the first long novel that I endured reading. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. A set of 24 fairy tale ladybird books that my grandfather got for me when for my 8th birthday. Usually it would always be clothes or toys that would be gifted to me. But my Sia, as I call him, was the first person to gift me a book. That was my first memory of owning a storybook and obsessively getting lost in the story. I could only read out loud back then because English is my second language and I had to slowly pronounce words. I loved the library period we had in school and I used to read every sign on the road when we travel. Anything I can get my eyes on long enough to pronounce. I remember reading all 24 books back to back. By the time I was done I had lost my voice. Good memories, heart. High school librarian suggested Asterix and Obelix. I was hooked. My dad used to go on work trips and come back with Enid Blyton books, like The Magic Faraway Tree, etc., and that started it. That was my first book too. I remember reading it multiple times when I was younger. Ender's Game. I've been a reader since early childhood, so I can't remember the exact book, but probably a Nancy Drew or a Trixie Belden. The Dictionary. I like the Break a Mental Sweat too. Harry Potter and Goblet of Fire. Mom couldn't keep up with my demand, so I made the Great Leap. Cujo. I had heard so much about Stephen King and seen some movies, so I wanted to know if the hype was deserved. The Grapes of Wrath by Steinbeck. I was 12 then, I think, and could not stop reading. A Wizard of Earthsea, Ursula K. Le Guin. Principles and Practice, C++. I hate reading fiction, sad face. Anne of Green Gables series. The Stand. A Wrinkle in Time. My 6th grade language arts teacher used it as a class reading project. She told a story about how she chose it originally because she had a student in her class that year who was named Charles Wallace. But that was years ago, so maybe incorrect. Undach so bitter call. I don't think it was translated into English, so there isn't an English title. Translated 1-to-1 it would be, and also so very cold. Pretty sure it was 4 Past Midnight by Stephen King back when I was 12, but I really started reading to pass time in public transports far much later, when I was 19 or 20. Probably when I was 10. Harry Potter. Thank you so much for watching and have a good day.